Hey, thanks for joining me. Good to see you. So, something I find very interesting regarding the Switch 2 and the games which will be receiving updates for improvements. Something interesting is that Age of Calamity has not received any sort of announcement regarding updates for bringing the game to the Switch 2 with any enhancements. Now, the main issue with Age of Calamity were performance implications in that the game just really doesn't run all that well, and I want to explain why that is and why most likely this game has not received any announcement for getting an improved Switch 2 version, because I believe that this game will actually just run better on the Switch 2 without having the need for any patches. Now, the development team that works on these games, Koei Tecmo, they are working on a new Hyrule Warriors game for the Switch 2, so obviously they have their hands full. They probably don't have the resources to make updates and a new version for this game to bring it to the Switch, and I believe that they would have calculated all of that and determined, wait, this game, when you run this game on Switch 2, it already runs better. So I'll put a link in the description to a video where Nintendo's developers for the Switch 2 explained that Switch 1 games actually will run better on the Switch 2 because the way that Switch 1 games are running on the Switch 2, it is not one-to-one. They're not using original Switch hardware to play the games. They're using emulation, which means that the Switch 1 games can actually run better on Switch 2. I'm actually playing the game right now. Something I find interesting. So there's a number of things that really caused this game to run poorly, to run at a low frame rate. So you can consider that every game has a rendering budget on any hardware, no matter what it is. So let's say we have $2 in quarters here, and I'm not saying budget as in real world money. Let's just say that your GPU, your CPU, and your RAM, the hardware of your game console, is what gives you your rendering budget. Every single thing that you have to render, any sound effect, any music, any special effects that you put on the screen, even your UI elements like your heads-up display, all of that costs something out of your rendering budget. So let's say that we only have one enemy on screen, right? Well, that doesn't cost that much. Let's say that only costs 10 cents out of your rendering budget. So you have to take some change out of there. But things that are expensive are, for example, these particle effects that are slightly transparent. You see those transparent slash effects, those actually are quite expensive. You have these blurring and these blur line effects. Those actually are quite expensive. So let's take 25 cents out of that. When you lock on to a target, in this game, you actually have a blurring effect which blurs out the background. And on original Switch hardware, that's actually quite expensive. So let's say we take another 50 cents out of there. Then we have other effects such as explosions, and you add more enemies on screen. And let's just say that we have even more enemies on screen, and all of a sudden all those 10-cent pieces add up. So we'll take another 50 cents out of our budget. Right now we have 75 cents left. Eventually, your budget is going to run low. And once your rendering budget gets low enough, that's when you start seeing frame rate drops. Now we have things like trees and grass. Let's take another 25 cents out for the grass. We also have to be able to interact with that. Then we have the trees. Now you'll notice something interesting. When we lock on to an enemy, a number of the trees disappear. That means the game is actually changing the maximum distance at which it can draw trees, because the developers understand drawing trees is actually a bit expensive. You'll notice a number of them actually reduce in quality as well. We have something called the level of detail system, where up close things can be higher quality visual assets. They can be 3D models, but you can see that tree flickering in the back there. You see how it's flickering between its two level of detail assets? That means that as we get closer, it can be higher quality. As we get farther, it's lower quality. Let's go ahead and just walk over to that tree now. You can see it's higher quality. It uses higher quality visual asset. So the developers understand that when we are locked on and we have that depth of field effect, it has a significant impact on the performance because it uses up more of the budget, they actually changed the bias of the level of detail for the trees so that the trees are lower quality. So this is something we can see the developers are trying to make concessions and keep the performance going as well as it can be. But here's the problem now. So, okay, we have the trees now. That's another. We have 25 cents left in our budget, and that means that our frame rate is going to get really bad. Now, here's the main issue with this game. When you play in two-player mode, it's not exactly double because you're reducing the overall resolution that one camera is rendering. We have one camera per player. Right now we only have one camera because I'm in one-player mode. But when we are in two-player mode, it's not exactly doubling because you're reducing the asset. But for the sake of simplifying things, let's just say that you're basically doubling the cost. So all of everything that we already spent, we had 25 cents left in our budget. This is what we spent rendering out everything in the game. Once you put it into two-player mode, you have to double that. Well, we don't have anything left in the budget. That's why this game runs so poorly. It's just using more budget than what the Switch has available. Now, the Switch 2 has a significantly higher budget. Until we have it in our hands as gamers and we put the console through its paces and we play games not the way that we are being shown in demonstrations. What we see in trailers and, in demonstrations is very curated. What we see online in presentations, they're trying to put the best foot forward in terms of marketing. But once we have the console in our hands and we can really play the games our way and we can stress the consoles out in terms of gameplay, then we'll really understand what the rendering budget is actually like. But I have a feeling that this game will actually run just fine on the Switch 2. Again, I'll put a link to a video where I explain that and I analyze what the Nintendo's developers for Switch 2 have said about this. But they said that Switch 1 games, they load faster and they run smoother. So we'll see what happens when the Switch 2 launches. But that's why I believe this game in particular, The Legend of Zelda Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, I believe this won't be getting a Switch 2 version because the developers have their hands full with a new game, and this game will most likely run fine. Now, what we will see is an improvement in frame rate, but we won't see, unless they create a patch or a Switch 2 version for this game, we won't see any changes to the visuals. We won't see an improvement in the quality, like, say, for example, how it's switching between low quality and high quality level of detail assets. We won't see an increase in rendering resolution, but we will see an improvement in the frame rate. So I hope this topic was interesting to you. I'm a massive fan of Zelda games, and I haven't finished this one because it's a bit unpleasant to play this, and I don't want to play this in one-player mode. I call a friend over and we do the couch co-op and we play two-player mode. And it's unfortunately, I hate being negative, but it's not a great experience. And we have to communicate in real time and not in a fun way. We have to tell each other, hey, I'm going to do my special attack. And so when we say that, we know the other person won't use their special attack. Otherwise, the game will grind to a halt when it comes to the frame rate. Sometimes I'll say, hey, can I have some frame rate? Which means, stop using your flashy attacks, use a simpler... use some of your simpler moves. I need some frame rate. And it's not, and we're having a laugh. We're enjoying it, but it's not in a great way. So I hope you enjoyed having a look at that. Just real quick, I wanted to have a laugh. This is funny. This is a Black Hawk 5.5 inch. They claim it's 5.5 inch, but I measured the Black Hawk, and it was only 5.1 on the screen, so it was false advertising. This thing is shocking. It's an emulation device. I just want to share it with you because it makes me laugh. It's hilarious. I'm doing reviews on a bunch of these devices so I can help people find devices that fit their needs. These things are so cool. It's emulation. People say it's piracy. They kind of have a freak out about it. And my philosophy is, hey, don't stress out about everything. Chill, baby. Emulation is cool. Piracy, it's not... Look, it's old stuff that you can't buy. It's old games you can't buy anyway. I think these are cool, but this device sucks. Boy, howdy, this is bad. Obviously, it's meant to look like a crappy PlayStation Portal. What makes me laugh are these narrow shoulder buttons. Have you seen anything as narrow as that? These things make me laugh. Also, this doesn't emulate any consoles that use L2 and R2, so there's actually no point to having those buttons up there. It does not emulate PlayStation or anything, so the fact that it has them is hilarious. The fact that they're so small just makes me laugh. This is a tragic device. Also, it lied about its size. It's only 5.1, not 5.5 inches. Anyway, hope you had a laugh taking a look at that. This one sucks, though. Absolutely. If you see this, this is an absolute... Don't. That one sucks. All right. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for watching the video. Take care. Have fun. Be well. All right. I'll put some links on the screen if you want to see some other videos. Cheerio. Chill, baby.